Hello everyone, welcome back to Pommyinoz. I hope we're all doing really well. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. Go into the link below and look at the Discord. Join the Discord community there. We have a little bit of fun. We discuss fantasy football. We discuss all sports and life in general. It's a really good community. And we're trying to build it and make it a little bit bigger. But if you can't do that, at least give us a sub, give us a like. And get me on that road to 1,000. Well, what we're doing today is we've had the practice games of the AFL men's sides. And I'm going to give you 18 players, one from each club, of someone that impressed me having gone through each and every game. So let's get straight into it. First up, Adelaide Crows. They played Port Adelaide, and obviously it's a big ask because it was the Wooden Spooners versus the Minor Premiers. And it was a very one-sided game. Port Adelaide obviously got the better of that game. But one guy that really did stand out for me is Billy Frampton. Now, 3 goals, he really worked hard up and down the ground. He was super competitive when he was in the ruck. He offers that forward option. I see him kind of being like, you know, the Licorice All Sorts this year. I kind of see him kind of like playing that Levi Casbolt role for Carlton, where he's going to pinch it in the ruck, play a bit forward. He might drop behind the ball as well and be a toe target, looking for the intercept. But he looked really fit and he looked really strong. And he is someone that I think every team needs. I know Billy Frampton isn't the kind of name that gets you excited and gets you jumping about. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but he is a very solid player. And he looked really good. He took 3 goals really well as well. He's a real awkward customer. And if he can get a good run at it and stay fit, I wouldn't be surprised to see him do really well this year. I'm a big fan of Frampton. I like him. So, I mean, he stood out for me. He's someone that I think will pose a problem in round 1 and should be a staple of the Adelaide Crows side moving forward. Brisbane Lions then. Now, this man, they played Gold Coast, and obviously they did the job. Many people's favourites for the flag as well, Brisbane, and quite rightly so. They're a good team. And I think they'll get there if this man fires, and that's none other than Joe Daniher. Now, earlier this week, we had the media come out and say that he would be all Australian in the next 2 years and they reckon he'll dominate it. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon yet, but what I will say is Joe Daniher on his day is as good as they come. He kicked 4 goals, 3 from 8 shots, which isn't bad, and he looked a threat throughout. He's a marking genius. He looked fit as well. He really took the lead really early on. Once he gets in front of a defender, very, very hard to stop. And I was super impressed with his mobility and just how he's already looks like he's connected with that already talented midfield. Brisbane have got a lot of tools to hurt and not a lot of people are talking about them, which does surprise me because they're one of my picks to really go deep this year. If Joe Daniher fires, you've got Hipwood, you've got Rayner, you've got Cluggage, you've got a lot of talented players in that team coming up. They're going to be tough to stop. One thing that Daniher loves is early entries, and when you've got players like Rich, Loins, Neil, players like that, they get the ball in quick and they move quick. I think he'll do really well there, and I won't be surprised to see him fire. Carlton next, and this was a pleasure to do. We got the better of Essendon, and that is none other than Paddy Dow. Now, Paddy Dow, he's mercurial, isn't he? Came into the system and he had a really good year. Kind of plateaued and maybe fell off a little bit last year. But last week, there was signs that he's back to his best. We saw him attack the ball. We saw him zip away from a contest. Real hungry, and I think he's got that hunger there. He's a player to me, and these kind of mercurial players have to play with a bit of enjoyment. And he's looked like he's had the weight of the world on his shoulders for the last 2 years. He looked like he'd embraced it. He looked like he's having fun, and it's great to see him back with a smile on his face. I wouldn't be surprised to see Paddy Dow start early doors and be a top talent throughout the year. I expect a big one from Paddy. I backed him earlier on. I've seen him now. I think he'll go from strength to strength, but he's one who caught my eye. Collingwood up next. They played Geelong, and that was a real tough game. It was a real competitive game, but one player that caught my eye for them, and it was the question I had going into this game. Who is going to be the Treloar replacement? And I thought Braden Sear, to me, looked brilliant. He was continually used in the centre bounces, and he's a big ox. He's kind of what happens if you go to Wish and you order Patrick Cripps. He's a big body. He loves the contested possessions, and when he's got them talent around him, It's not hard to go far. I think Sia is a gun. He's got the tackle pressure. He's got clean hands in a contest. He's got a big body. He uses that big body well. And I think he's the perfect foil for Collingwood to get the ball to a more talented user. I am excited about seeing Braden's development. He was limited in game time last year. I think the sky is the limit for Magpies this year for him. Essendon up next. And this is kind of a cheat because he's technically not on their list, but they played Carlton. And I was impressed by Alec Waterman. Now, those who are familiar with my work on Blue Abroad, Alec Waterman was one of the guys that I profiled as a potential pickup for Carlton. They didn't listen to me. Essendon did. 4 goals from him. And you know what is brilliant about him is he's that medium size, but he can play tall, he can play small, highly athletic, highly mobile, very good in the pressure. He chases, he works hard, got a good engine, and he's a dead-eye in front of goal. And he really showed that. If I was Essendon, I'd be looking forward to seeing this guy link up with someone like Jake Stringer, because vision is his go-to. An absolute elite player, and I reckon he will play nearly every game for Essendon. He's an absolute superstar and an absolute steal as a late-season pickup. Fremantle up next. And there was a few. They played the Eagles. I was really impressed with Fife, I've got to say. He's playing a more forward role. He looks like he's embraced it. And part of the reason he's embraced that role is the work of this young gentleman, Andrew Brayshaw. He saw a shed ton of the ball. He had leather poisoning. And he was absolutely brilliant. And he looks ready to skyrocket. He had a great year last year. I think he'll go up another gear. He looked really good, really sharp. He links up well. He hits targets above all. He breaks lines. He's the pure modern day midfielder. This guy is an absolute superstar. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him really usurp the name of Nat Fife in the years to come. He is an absolute superstar in waiting. He's got it all. And I'm a super fan of Andrew Brayshaw. Love watching him play. He had a really impressive game as well against the Eagles. Looks like he's gone on a level. And last year's level was very good. Up next then, Geelong Cats. Now, they played Collingwood, and it was a tough one, this, because there was a few that caught my eye, but the one that really did catch my eye was Jordan Clark down the half-back line. He's got a turn of pace, he's a great user, and I think he's exactly what Geelong need. He is a line breaker, he is a game winner, and he found a lot of the ball on that half-back flank, and he takes the game on. He looks like a good conduit from the back line to their very talented midfield. He's got a decent kick on him as well. He looks to hit inside 50 early as well. He's got it all. He's got it all. And I'm excited about seeing this kid develop. I'm excited about seeing Geelong give him more game time. And he should benefit that down at Geelong. I expect to see him become a staple in that Cattery side. And he's a very, very exciting talent. Gold Coast Suns next. They played Brisbane. And although they didn't get the result probably they wanted, one thing that was a highlight for me was Alec Markov. Now, I loved him at Richmond. Hard to miss, big bushy moustache, decent tats. But above all, he's a good user. He breaks lines. He's a natural rebounder. And he looks to take the game on. And he has a lot of energy, a lot about him. And I like Markov's game. He looks like he's linking up well. He's going to get you them possessions and really keep the chains moving. He looks to take the game on as well. I was a big fan of his game, and he looks like a solid pickup for Gold Coast. And something that the Sun fans should get excited about. And I'm looking forward to seeing him line up round 1. I reckon he'll be a real jet for you guys. GWS up next. They played the Sydney Swans. And a guy that really stood out for me was one of my boys, Josh Kelly. He looked back to his best. He played a lot more in the midfield this time. He really linked up well, found a lot of the ball, real penetrating inside 50. He's a quick player, super skillful, one of the most skillful in the competition. And he looked back to his dangerous best. Wasn't his best 2020, but I reckon 2021, he's primed to go big again. Big contract year for Josh Kelly. Be a lot of rumours circulating. A chance to add a few zeros on that old contract this year, and I think he's going to be a superstar. And I reckon GWS will do everything they can to keep him. Hawthorn up next. I watched this game and I was really excited about this. Watched this live against the Doggies, and that was Ollie Hannan. I was really impressed by him. He worked both ends of the ground. He used his body well. He was really strong in the air. What impressed me, aside from his 3 goals, was his ability to tap it down to the advantage of his smalls. He did that quite a lot. He works really hard both ends of the ground, tracking back as well. Decent defensive pressure. I reckon you've found something in Ollie there, and I reckon he's primed to go big this year. I'm excited about seeing him because you would say that that's probably one of the shortages at Hawthorn at the moment. They haven't really got the greatest key talents. Mitch Lewis wasn't that great last year, and I'm a big fan of him. But if Hannan can keep this form going, look out. He looks a bull. He looks a bull, and I was really impressed with his game. Demons up next, and I'm looking at Maxi Gorner here. He dominated against Richmond, and he looked fearsome. He had a lot of the ball. His ruck work is impeccable. He looked really fit. Was working hard both ends of the ground, and he was just domination in every sense of the word. Max Gorn, to me, looks like he's primed to have another big one, and if he goes big with the midfield around him, look out the rest of the comp. I'm really excited about seeing how this develops. Ben Brown there, when he gets fit, they've got that target that they want. It's going to be interesting because Max Gorn gets your first use. If they've got a target and it works, look out. North Melbourne next. It was a great game, this one, if you're a St Kilda fan. There wasn't too many highlights for North. But then again, I'm not reading into it too much because they did have some key outs. But Jaden Stevens really stood out for me in this one. 2 goals, looked busy throughout. He oscillated through the midfield as well. He looks to make something happen, which is important. And you know, teams like North probably are going to be overlooked by a lot of teams. And we always see some of these teams usurp people. And Jaden Stevenson is that player that you've always got to keep an eye on. He was really exciting. He looked to link up well, looked to move the change, looked to play a lot of 1-2s. And he's deadly when he gets a bit of time. I'm really excited about seeing Jaden Stevenson's next chapter of his career. He's a player that I highly regard. And he looked the business for North. Port Adelaide up next. They played Adelaide. There was a few standouts when I was watching the Port Adelaide game. But one that really stood out for me was Xavier Dempsey. 3 goals and he was busy throughout, working through midfield in the forward line. He's a tackling machine. We're going to see a bit of this action this year, I can tell you, because he was snagging for banter and he was superb throughout. His pressure is exceptional. He looks like he's put on a few kgs. He's had another year in the system. He understands this game. He's getting the footy now. He's a top player, and I can't wait to see him. Him and Rosie are 2 delights to see play this game, and he looked fearsome against Adelaide. Richmond Tigers, they played the D's. There was a few takeouts for this. Bolton looks like he's definitely a midfielder now. He looked very zippy. But one guy that stood out for me was Jake Hartz. I'm a big fan of this kid, and he took his 2 goals really well, and he was really crafty, and endeavour throughout was really on point. He really buys into that Richmond ethos, and he's a dangerous player, and he's a player that I'm going to watch his development closely. Did impress me against Melbourne. He made them look amateurish at times, and he's a player that he's going to need to come under attention because he's got game-breaking ability. I'm a big fan of Jake Hartz, and based on one scratch match, he looks like he's primed for a big one. St Kilda up next. Mason Wood, I was going to pick. He's still not on the list. I know I chose Alec Waterman, but he was a guy that I just wanted to talk about. Max King is the guy I'm picking here. 2 goals. He looks a beast. Generational forward. For me, he's an excitement machine, and it's great that I get an excuse to watch him because my wife's a St Kilda girl. He's an absolute superstar, and he looks primed. He looks bigger now than last year. He's had another year in the system. He knows what it's about. I think he's going to go big. I think he's going to go big this year. I think he's going to be tough to stop as well. His body work is exceptional. He uses his height well. He uses his speed well, which is deceptively quick for someone so big. He's an absolute ox. Watch out, AFL defenders, because you do not want this kid on you. Sydney up next. They played GWS, as we discussed. And a guy that really impressed me is a guy that I'm a big fan of, and that's Nick Blakey. He had lots of the ball, and he's playing on the wing now, and his height is that factor, and they're becoming in vogue in the AFL, aren't they? Taller wingmen. And he looks primed. He uses it well. He attacks the ball. He knows how the game works. He's got that goal-scoring ability as well. He can play third man up, and he's got an exceptional delivery by foot. He's a very good user, and he reads the play well. He looked really good against GWS, and he was one of the big takeouts for me when I watched Swans. Look out the AFL, because I think he'll have a big one this year. Eagles, they played Fremantle. There was a few here that I was keeping an eye out, but one that I was really interested about was seeing Liam Duggan go into the midfield, kind of as a stopper, as a defensive midfielder. Kind of had shades of Sam Mitchell playing a little bit behind the midfield and pinging passes around, and I think this looked really good. I think Shuey was brilliant. Then you've got Kelly, and you've got players of that ilk to come back in there. You've got Gaff as well. I think if you've got Duggan behind them, just moving them chains, just hitting targets. They're going to be very tough to beat. He's very good defensive, and he also hits targets. He looked really good. He found a lot of the pill and used it really well. I'd be very worried about this one if I was the rest of the teams, because I think the Eagles have got a sneaky little plan up their sleeve, and he looks part of it. He looks very good. The dog is now against Hawthorn. There was a few that impressed me here. I thought Tim English's new role, he looked pretty good. He floated up forward. Stephen Martin as well looks a very good acquisition for them. But one that I love is Bailey Smith. Some real nice smart touches, oscillating from half forward to midfield. He's bigger, his mullet's better, and he's a threat. He's a threat. Every time he gets the ball, there looks like there's something that's happening. Dunkley looks like he's going to oscillate back in the midfield a bit more from that one scratch match. Bailey Smith could be that loose man, and if he's the loose man, he can tear teams apart. I'm super excited about seeing him next year, but he was one who stood out for me, and I'm looking forward to the practice games this week. They're my 18. Let me know who you're looking for and who stood out for you at your respective clubs. Love having this discussion. Footy's back, ladies and gentlemen. Can't wait. See you soon. Pom out.